Evening all, it's that time of week again. It's another version of the Truth, Honour and Integrity show, and tonight is March the 16th. Hi all, and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. Oh boy, do we have a show tonight. We may not get round to questions. I'll wear the warning because it's kind of packed. It's taken me about 6 hours today to prepare for it. There's a lot of intel, there's a lot of info, and there's a lot of messages going out to some very important people around the planet tonight. I can't say it's all pleasant news, but it's not. It's part of the fun and games that's ongoing, and some of it will shock and some of it won't. But as we always do with this show, we call it as it is. We don't. There's enough spouting lies and distortions. This show delivers it as it is, whether you like it or you don't. But we have to deal in reality, not fantasy. And so the second hour will likely, or somewhere near the end of the first hour, will likely lead into the intel and some of the op-ed pieces that I've got prepared, and it'll be fun. Rest assured, it'll be fun. Right, it's been an interesting week, a quiet week in some aspects and not in others. There's a lot of to and fro going on, there's a lot of meetings going on, there's a lot of threats going on, and just a normal week really. But we'll try to get through this, the carnage of what's took place this week, and see how we go about. Right, for those of you who are new to this show, this is the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. My name's Thomas Williams, and we have a Facebook page of the same name. It's a bit different from most Facebook pages, if not all. People actually look after each other rather than abuse each other. We have a website called the People's Club, which is for the foundation when we remove the elements that are blocking it at the moment. The funding's there, it's just these clowns that have to be removed. So that's thepeoplesclub.org. And we have an email. Apologies to those who have sent emails this week. I haven't had chance to go through them. So if some of you posted questions, which we may not get round to anyway, this show, my apologies. But it's been a fairly hectic week for me. Halfway through Humanity Unplugged 2. So there'll be another special show coming up soon. It may be Sunday. It's pushing. It depends on how many calls and interruptions that I get between now and the weekend. It may be next Tuesday, but at the very latest it will be a week on Sunday. I've also been speaking to two people that may be coming on the show. That's going to give some fairly groundbreaking information, and so that's in planning as well, and a few other things. So there's lots going on. It's keeping me busy, so that covers it all. Anyway, the email is I nearly said Cosmic Voice. That's the second time today. I can't even remember the email. I've just been that much wrecked today. Anyway, the email is truth.honour.and.integrity@gmail.com. truth.honour.and.integrity@gmail.com. Right, let's get into some of the given what's been going on, fairly mundane news items around the world, and we're going to start with Turkey, which of course this particular person mentioned back in 2014 would play a major role in world affairs along with Japan, and we've all seen the evidence of that now. Anyway, the Turkish president this week, Mr. Erdogan, has described the Dutch, which is the people of Holland, or Netherlands as they're now called, as Nazi remnants and fascists, as a diplomatic row grows over a cancelled rally. The Turkish foreign minister was due to speak in the Dutch city of Rotterdam last Saturday in support of a referendum to give Mr. Erdogan greater powers. But the rally was banned for security reasons, and the minister's plane was then refused permission to land. The Dutch Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, said the remark was way out of line. It's a crazy remark, of course, Mr. Rutte said, and Turkey has summoned the Dutch charged affairs to the Foreign Ministry in Ankara for an explanation of why that was said. Now, Holland's been in the news quite a lot recently. There's a lot of fun and games, and to be quite honest, and this has nothing to do with the people of Holland, all the atrocities being done in the American people's name. The people are oblivious to the clowns that are operating the countries, but the Nazis are in Holland. Some of the same clowns that have been operating here, and that is why Mr. Erdogan made that statement. A school in New Jersey is under fire this week for an assignment. Beggars believe this, but it's all part of the divide and conquer, that asked children aged 10 to 11 should create posters depicting slave auctions. Some parents have reacted rather angrily when they attended the school and saw the posters hanging in the hallway. The principal has since apologised for any pain or offence caused. Obviously lacks common sense to begin with, and district officials said children needed to learn about the uglier parts of our past, but accepted the posters should not have been hung without context. The assignment had been set by the South Mountain Elementary School in South Orange near Newark. One of the posters depicted available slaves with a drawing of a 12-year-old girl called Anne, offered as a fine house girl. This is what we're teaching our kids. They're not teaching them homosexuality at 5, as some schools are, or Muslim prayer. They're now teaching slavery, and that's not the way to go about to teach history. It never was and never will be. The Pentagon. We'll have more on them later. This week has pledged a full investigation into a nude photo scandal hitting the American Armed Forces. Defence Secretary James Mattis says all appropriate action was being taken in all branches of the armed forces, as the scandal began when nude photos of female Marines were published online by male colleagues. Fewer than 10 female Marines have come forward to make a formal complaint. General Robert Neller said he hoped more women would come forward to help the investigation, but the scandal initially broke when current and former members of the US Marines were discovered sharing naked photos of servicewomen on Facebook in a group called Marines United. Is this what our tax money is being spent on? Is this the conduct that we should be becoming of people who are operating allegedly on our behalf? It's funny they focus on photographs when there's a fair number of evidence of crimes of rape occurring on many of the US foreign bases. It's not just isolated incidents either. It's fairly prolific, particularly the one Woodbridge, down in the south of England. There's a number of bodies found around the perimeter of that fence, female. It's a big problem, and conduct needs to be sorted out. What doesn't help the fact is that the top brass are the soldiers, so they know not what they do, so it seems. This is more irony in itself, but they've decided to report this week, United Nations that is, that the world is facing its largest humanitarian crisis since 1945. Pretty much when the United Nations started, really. And they are issuing a plea for help to avoid catastrophe, as they called it. The UN humanitarian chief, Stephen O'Brien, has said that more than 20 million people face the threat of starvation and famine in Yemen, Somalia, South Sudan and Nigeria. UNICEF has already warned 1.4 million children could starve to death this year alone. Mr. O'Brien said $4.4 billion was needed by July to avert disaster. We stand at a critical point in our history, he said to the Security Council last Friday. Already at the beginning of the year, we are facing the largest humanitarian crisis since the creation of the United Nations. Now more than 20 million people across 4 countries face starvation and famine. Without collective and coordinated global efforts, people will simply starve to death. Many more will suffer and die from disease. Well, famine is not an accident at this point. It's a choice. What the UN are basically saying is that they failed. 72 years of operating, and we still have millions and millions of people starving. What happened to all the funds of Live Aid? Why are the same people still starving? Because they're meant to be, that's why. That money was a collection for the elites. All of it. Like the Clinton Foundation. 5% to so-called good causes, which is generally people connected to that bitch, let's be honest. It's not going to the general people, is it? So it's not an accident that so many people are starving, so many people are in poverty, so many people are suffering with diseases and a lack of clean water. Perhaps someone needs to tell Bill Gates instead of that people need food instead of vaccines. He seems to be putting a lot of funds into vaccines for people who've got nothing to eat. Why would you want a vaccine? Enough's enough for these people. It really is. Where are we next? Well, Mr. Bahara, or Bahara, whatever it's called. Sounds like what was it? The Banana Bunch. Is that right? John Bryan will know what that one is. Mr. Bahara's dismissal capped an extraordinary showdown in which a political appointee who was named by Mr. Trump's predecessor, Barack Obama, declined an order to submit a resignation this week. He said, "I did not resign. Moments ago, I was fired. Being the US Attorney will forever be the greatest honour of my professional life," he wrote on his personal Twitter feed this week, which he set up in the last 2 weeks. He obviously must have known something was going on. He was among 46 holdover Obama appointees who were called by the acting Deputy Attorney General on Friday and told to immediately submit resignations and plan to clear out of their own offices. But Mr. Bahrar was called to Trump Tower for a meeting with the incoming president in late November 2016, declined to do so, and was consequently fired. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing will remain to be seen. 46 attorneys. You've got to consider that 95% of them, maybe 99% of them, are not good to begin with, so maybe that's a good thing. Time will tell. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau received, as it was stated, an unusually warm reception to his keynote address at an energy industry conference in Texas on Thursday evening. Canada's got a lot of issues, but Mr. Trudeau seems to think that travelling to Texas to talk about oil is more important. That tells you much about Mr. Trudeau. He said this week that no country would find 173 billion barrels of oil in the ground and just leave them there. Why not? When we don't really need it. We've got a surplus everywhere because no one's using it anymore. We've got technology that requires that we don't need it. So why don't you leave it there? Mr. Trudeau said during his address to oil and gas industry executives, no wonder he got a warm response at Houston's CERA Week conference discussing Alberta's vast oil sands reserve. Mr. Trudeau's comments were met with a standing ovation from the over 1,200 attendees. Yes, he would do, because they're happy clappers. People who are more interested in their paychecks than the damage being done to the planet. Message to Mr. Trudeau. The people of Canada have not forgotten the damage done to them by your family. More and more are finding it out. Tick-tock, Mr. Trudeau. Former CIA Deputy Director Mike Morrell believes the leak of CIA documents published this week by WikiLeaks has to be an inside job. Go figure. This data is not shared outside of the CIA. Remember that comment. It's only inside the CIA, Mr. Morrell said in an interview with CBS this morning on Saturday. He argued that the data is on CIA's secret network that is not connected to other networks. It's on a CIA's top secret network which is not connected to other networks, he went on again. So this is just has to be an inside job. Well. I would like to thank Mr. Morrell for notifying we the people that the CIA operates outside of government control, because you've just said it with your statement. Thanks for that. I think you'll be hearing from certain people. I should have posted it. I should have read this one out earlier. World Health Organization, which is a misnomer in itself. They're not interested in people's health, they're interested in pushing drugs. I've stated in a report this week that 1/3 of the world's population lives without access to proper toilet facilities. 1/3. They went on and stated this causes natural water reserves to become contaminated with human waste, which in turn causes disease, which in turn then leads people to being ill, which in turn then leads to people buying your drugs, does it not? World Health Organization. You know, all these people dying. 1/3 of the world's population haven't got proper toilet facilities. It's not an accident, is it? Not in this day and age. Russia, we're going to Russia next. President Vladimir Putin spokesman said in an interview on Sunday that the Russian ambassador, who met with Trump campaign officials, also met with people working in think tanks advising Hillary Clinton, or advising people working for Hillary. Oops. Well, if you look at some people connected with Hillary Clinton during her campaign, you will probably see that he had lots of meetings of that kind, said Dmitry Peskov in an interview with CNN. There are lots of specialists in politology. That's a new word. I've never seen that word before. People working in think tanks advising Hillary or advising people working with Hillary, and also speaking to the same people on the opposite side for Mr. Trump. So there goes the allegations that they only work with one side. Clearly they had spoken to both sides, because there's a lot going on politically that involves every country on this planet. Mr. Peskov defended both of those meetings, saying they were not an attempt to interfere in the 2016 election. Nope. Blame Russia. Always blame Russia. Perhaps it's Russia's fault for the famine and people haven't got proper toilet facilities. They seem to be blaming them for everything else these days. And where are we next? A first-term congressman who spent the last 3 decades as a physician and is now part of a group of I've nearly slipped up there. Republican, not reptilian doctors. Republican doctors who have a major role in replacing Obamacare. Now, he is facing backlash after saying that poor people just don't want health care and aren't going to take care of themselves. The Republican responsible for that comment is Roger Marshall from Kansas, and a member of the GPO Doctors Caucus. He retorted and said comments he made to Stat News were not meant to suggest that poor people take health care for granted, but just like Jesus said, the poor will always be with us. Bizarre statement that is. Mr. Marshall said in response to a question about Medicaid, which expanded under Obamacare to more than 30 states, quote, there is a group of people that just don't want health care and aren't going to take care of themselves, unquote. He added that, quote, morally, spiritually, socially, unquote, the poor, including the homeless, just don't want health care. Perhaps the people of Kansas just don't want Mr. Marshall and time to remove him and his stupidity. Talking of stupidity, I'm going to try and read this without hilarious laughter, but it's you just can't make this stuff up. You just really can't. So perhaps the people of Kansas who can get rid of Roger Marshall for his stupidity. The people of Texas, who have a Democrat, not that it makes any difference, called Jessica Farrar. This woman really needs to be locked up. A Texas politician has filed legislation that would see men fined $100 for masturbating unless they are doing it in a sanctioned session at a hospital or a clinic. Ms. Farrar, or Mrs. Farrar, created the Man's Right to Know Act to highlight how women have been affected by targeted healthcare legislation in her state, particularly relating to abortion. The headline stipulation would categorise ejaculation outside either a vagina or a medical facility as an act against an unborn child and failing to preserve the sanctity of life. Words fail. And we're paying these people. You just don't know where to go with that. You really don't know where to go with that. My answer would be, will someone just please jizz in that woman's mouth and shut her up once and for all? And please get rid of her as a politician. Enough idiots without adding that. In other news, there's been drug swoops, the largest find in 18 years in Puerto Rico. This is part of the ongoing hidden war that's going on behind the scenes. 10,000 weapons destined for terrorist groups were intercepted this week by Europol. Politicians being accused of all kinds. RICO lawsuits are being planned, and Pizzagate seemingly now outside of the media spin. And yet the media still play their sleight of hand. The classic example this week, of which they've all focused on, and last week as well, I might add, is the war of words between Mr. Trump and Mr. Obama about wiretapping. Now, if Mr. Obama has been involved in wiretapping Mr. Trump, really that's not the story, is it? The story is that it actually exists. What about all the wiretapping of all our phones? That's the real story. That's the story the journalists should be focusing on. That they could be part of an unwitting wiretap based on somebody's opinion, be it right or wrong. Virtually everyone in this country has their phones wiretapped, whether you like that information or you don't. So why highlight that just Mr. Trump is being wiretapped? There's a bigger story there, but it's all part of the sleight of hand. The other story that the media were covering, which has gained some traction, is the latest Disney movie, and the one of the characters being gay in a Disney movie. But yet again, the sleight of hand. What they didn't mention was one of the characters is the Baphomet. But let's focus on the gay issue, shall we? Never mind, you've got the devil incarnate in a kids' movie. No, let's focus on the gay issue. Let's focus on Trump being wiretapped when the rest of the country's being wiretapped, and all their emails and phone calls being read and listened to. This is the games the media play. It's high time they were shut down. So, as we can see, with that clown with the masturbation legislation, and the other guy from Kansas saying people don't want healthcare. This world gets more increasingly insane by the day. and the technology that is driving it. I know it's creating a dint in my forehead, as the amount of times I'm face palming my head these days, I'm going to have no forehead left. This week you had the people in America putting plastic bags over their faces so they don't breathe the same air as Trump. Really? These people are criminally insane. Their stupidity seems to know no bounds. None. But what this reaffirms is the two-world theory put forward last year. These people have drifted so far away from themselves and reality, it's beyond our comprehension. The dark and their machines works hard. It hooks in as many as possible. And it's a testament to all that listen to this show of your own resolve that you have negated the most parts of it. But this two worlds will get wider by the day. It will become more and more obvious by the day. People will become more and more polarised by the day. And this is why we've been focusing on the psychological part of the show for the last 3 months. Another news item this week: tattoo chips on your skin. They're now introducing for medical purposes. Yeah, right. Pull the other one. Inserting chips under the skin so you can operate certain other machines quicker. That concept to me is a parody in itself. So you get these untested chips to save you time, but any adverse reaction to it will save you plenty of time, as your time will be up here, period. Yeah, just throw the chips under my skin, I'll be able to operate the ATM quicker. What an idiot. Odd machines in your homes like Alexa and some other Google shit. Really? Are we that lonely and desperate for some mechanical voice to talk to us? Yeah, it's bad enough with the phones. Are we that desperate that we need to know instant trivia, like what is the current temperature outside of our own front door? Or some other banal question that has no overall importance. The current version of trivia, or the current etymology of the word trivia, is a sideshow of the machine. Now, back in the days, not in my time, might have been in Drake's and Grammy J's, in the 14th century. Oops, there goes the broom. Trivia was actually one of the 5 subjects of the education curriculum before the Catholic Church destroyed the whole education system in the 14th century. Trivia was to do with the arts, grammar, rhetoric and logic. The top subject in that curriculum was astronomy. Somehow I knew this whole curriculum at age 12 without reading about it. Anyway, the current version of trivia is a distraction to keep you away from knowing yourselves and what life is all about. People interacting with each other and nature and not fucking machines. I used to remember, well, I think it's still around, a game called Trivial Pursuit. And anyone who's played it, most would avoid the brown questions because they were considered the harder questions to answer. And of course you'll all know that you'll get some people who are playing the game who got quite smug because they knew all the brown question answers and you never. I think that will set of reminders of a few. But it's good that you know answers. I know I'm glad I know answers on a few subjects, as most of my week is taken up answering questions. But it shows a level of intelligence. But the real advancement is intellect. Intelligence allows you to know the answer, but intellect allows you to understand the answer. There's a big difference. And quite often it's overlooked in our search for knowledge and answers. Knowing the answer is one thing, understanding its purpose and role is another. This takes an analytical brain and the intellect to be able to grasp what the answer entails, i.e. an overview look. Many of us often get stuck in the midst of the knowledge, debating point by point for validity, being proven you are right, when if you step outside of it all, you can go and observe them all and see the patterns, a broader spectrum of the truth, and also the distortions of it. In other words, don't get stuck in the maze of confusion that's deliberately planned for you by getting in the midst. Step back, take a look at it, observe it. With each answer should come a range of questions as to where that fits in. But the biggest questions and answers in life are your own. Who am I? What do I stand for? Am I real? Do I know thyself? What is my purpose? Do I have one? Am I living up to my potential? Am I comfortable in my own skin? Am I service to self or am I service to others? Can I be both? Well, yes you can. Service to self only becomes an issue where you seek to gain at the expense of others, enriching your own pockets. Service to the self is vitally important to us all. Service to the self is where we look in on ourselves and self-review of what we are, what the I needs to do, and boldly take on all aspects of the self that make you uncomfortable. Remember, anger towards others is often reflective of issues of the self. Can you look at the self objectively, or do you give your power away and allow others to dictate the you for you? These are the real answers that you really need to know about you. Service to others is an enrichment of the soul when applied in the correct manner. There are many who confess to be service to others, but in essence are promoting their own businesses, websites and blogs for the self. We have some of those people in the alternative community, as we all know. It's all about finding the right balance between service to the self and service to others, and that includes myself. I get reminded by some in my circle I should look after myself a lot more. So it's a constant battle for us all. You can't just do service to others without some degree of looking after the self. Without the self, there's nothing left to look after the others. So my advice would be stay away from voice modulated machines as much as possible, including phones. With their insidious mindfuckery, automated answering machines, press 1 for English, press 2 for Spanish. Me, I press 0 repeatedly so it throws off the machine. Or perhaps we should consider downloading our own message and playing it back to the machine. The title of this song will fit that download rather nicely. Hi all and welcome back to nearly the second hour of the show. We had some intel a couple of weeks ago. It was kind of mind-boggling in its scope and depth. Wait till you hear this lot. It's not all good, but rest assured we have made a lot more progress than many realise. This is more about getting over the final hurdle, the final blocks, rather than starting from scratch. So I want that to be clear. Nazi faction, we'll start off with them. The desperation of the Nazi faction and their breakaway groups, SS small p, are threatening all in their path and to wreak havoc on the whole planet. Many of you will have seen videos around the world in the last few weeks of a very strange craft. It's theirs. Now, this goes back to something I mentioned in the last week or the week before about them trying to start biowarfare. To date they have failed. So a message to the members, you often see posts on various other sites, but SS small p, not capital P. SS is for a reason. US Naval Space Command, ICC, MIC, SS small p, Sphere Being Alliance are all service to self and have no interest in helping human beings of this planet. None whatsoever. I don't care who tells you differently, I'm telling you as it is. Their only mode of operation, and the reason they keep most of us alive to date, is to use us as trade conduits via slavery or for other various nefarious purposes. These people will be stopped, and much is being done currently. A craft containing both Draco and a hybrid group was shot down over Vancouver Island recently. For those who are not aware, there's an underwater base just off the coast of Victoria. Lots of fun and games there. In fact, there's lots of fun and games in Vancouver, as I've mentioned previously. They are part of it, and why there's so much dark that goes on in that part of Canada. Now, part of the discovery ascertained from this craft is a major issue that concerns all of us on this planet, and it's called PPAI, or Pathological Predatory Artificial Intelligence, more commonly known as black goo. Now, what has been found is the entire race of the Draco are infected with it. Pathological predatory AI. This is why they are as bad as they are. So, whilst I would never underplay or downplay what they've done here, enough, there is certain elements as to why they're as bad as they are. Like I said, it doesn't discount it. Now, parasitic entities have pervaded this planet for far longer and on a far more widespread happening than most realise. Most of us have some sort of attachment, and why we stress on doing your inner work to cut down the chances. Chemtrails, nanoparticles, all part of the robotization of the human. This black goo, same thing, all about co-opting you into the central control system. Now, the parasitic entities are far more prevalent in negative-based people. Negativity is the conduit. And so now you wonder why the people who listen to this show, who report back, are now bothered about no longer having the energy or wherewithal to deal with people of this nature. This is why. It's your intuition telling you so. Now, once people are infected, a word of warning: yoga is a conduit for infection unless you are shielded heavily. Bear that in mind. It opens up your chakras. It allows things and entities to enter. So people who are doing yoga really need to shield up before they even attempt that. It operates under the same system as channeling. So once infected, it can be stopped unless the parasite takes over the individual's heart centre. At that point, it is my understanding, those people can no longer be helped. And those people are then hooked permanently into the hive-minded parasitic system. But, good news, is there are some in here that are immune to the virus due to different DNA. And these people are assisting to fix this issue once and for all. And you thought that was heavy. There's more to come, lots more to come. Funny five-sided building, Pentagon. It can now be reported that the Pentagon has now split into several factions. Some are now with us, some want to be paid out on the dinar, and some are with the Rothschilds, with or without dinar, as they are on some sort of payment promise program. Now, the joining hands of Langley 1, 2 and 3 has resulted in a fight, literally. That goes way beyond throwing pens at each other. The harsh reality is if the Pentagon people don't all fly straight, we are currently scared they will start killing each other, the same as what's happening in Langley at the moment. They're taking each other out. Message to the dinar people of the Pentagon: you all got scammed by the Rothschilds, not the government, nor their peers, the Rothschilds. This week, and this will be ongoing for another month as I get it. I don't understand the time scale of it or why. No doubt it will come out. But an attempt by certain people residing on American soil who purport to be Americans but are actually opposed to America regaining its former glory, were plotting and are plotting an attempt to remove Trump by any means this week. It started on Tuesday. Things are getting real ugly behind the scenes. Next item. The government spending bill. Bad news. It expires on March the 31st. And the USA Inc. government is completely broke. Courtesy of the Rothschilds, whose banking heist was reported last November. Now, it's not only the USA Inc. that's broke. The Rothschilds are broke. The Chinese elders are broke. And yet the two of them are still telling all and sundry they will fund the RV. That's the currency revaluation, for those people who are unfamiliar with that term. My term kind of fits better. Regurgitated vomit. But it's never going to happen. Rothschilds, Chinese elders, Asian faction are all one big group, like one big dragon family. For those of you who are new, or those who have forgotten, there are only three real dragon groups: the blue, black and green. All the rest, white, red, gold, are bogus entities. All dragon families, the real ones, have reptilian overlords as their leader. All of them. These people have been caught using computer hackers for the last number of weeks, trying to steal money from other countries, including China. And they still exist. Maybe not for long. Next news item. Where are we? When UK joined the EU, this will shock many. It then allowed for a leverage against all the in-ground assets of the Commonwealth countries, 52 of them. So they totaled up the value of all the in-ground assets of gold, silver, platinum, oil, etc., etc. And then the Rothschilds leverage it against the trust, collateral accounts, as people are more familiar with. So now, right now, what is leveraged to the trust is around $1.8 quadrillion worth of Swiss francs, British pounds and euros. And the Rothschilds et al., in league with the bogus elders, owe the trust all of it. And it's being called in. So until they pay the 1.8 quadrillion worth of Swiss francs, British pounds and euros back, no further leverage out of the trust account is possible. Done. Gone. And yet we still have clowns in the Pentagon thinking the Rothschilds are going to deliver the regurgitated vomit program. Just today, Rothschilds again have been given old access codes. These are the codes for the banking system. And they decided to use some of the old ones that no longer work. because they've been shut out of all the systems by our people. They gave the old access codes for several US Treasury accounts and for BLM assets. For those of you who don't remember, the BLM is no longer an issue. A deal was cut with them where they're now helping us last summer. So anything being blamed on BLM is actually the Fed, not BLM. So they also tried to access lots of other things today, including the Federal Reserve, the US Treasury, and also the Pentagon. All attempts failed. We're still unsure as what the point of this particular exercise was, but they also made an attempt to pull assets out of the Canadian Central Bank today. Then they tried to do an asset reassignment of the BLM holdings, asset holdings. So the people connected to this show sent a message back. This asset has already been pledged as collateral to the Manor World Holding Trust by Rothschild, the Trilaterals, Council of Foreign Relations under the Federal Reserve. No further assignment nor leverage is possible until the trust is paid $387 trillion in full by the above groups. Rothschilds, Trilaterals, Council of Foreign Relations and the Federal Reserve owe the trust $387 trillion. So they're blocked on that group as well. The US government was not the assigner nor the borrower, although they may or may not have received benefits via the above channels: Trilaterals, Council of Foreign Relations, Federal Reserve and the Rothschild Group. And we declare the US government assumes no liability for debts incurred by third parties. Further to this effect, we, Manor World Trust Holding Trust, assumed all debts incurred by the US government to the Federal Reserve aka the debt ceiling on the 5th of September 2012. In other words, the World Trust people who are behind part of this show, bailed out the whole of the US. They went further. We have no interest in collecting any debts at this time, none, until further discussions and agreements can be made. The clowns in the last few days are contemplating, in inverted commas, another secret bankruptcy of the United States government. And so on it goes. So just to recap, the Rothschilds and Chinese elders et al. Owe 1.8 quadrillion via the euro leverage and 387 trillion via America's leverage. And you people in the Pentagon still think the Rothschilds are going to deliver? Idiots. Utter idiots. So, China is cleaning house. Russia is cleaning all the Baltic states, as they're just about clear of the Rothschilds. The UK has for the most part done the same too. The Vatican has called for assistance to get them out of there too, and most of the other countries are standing up as well. I mentioned 6 countries 2 weeks ago, was it? asking for help to remove the rogue elements from their countries. I imagine that number has increased exponentially since then. So as you can see, there's lots going on around the world at this point, and there's still another 4 pages of intel, but I thought at this time I'll give you a chance to absorb that amount of intel, and we're going to play a song for the Rothschilds. Right, that was going out to the Rothschilds. Fitting, I have to say. Right, buckle up, here we go again. So, we've kind of covered what the Rothschilds have been up to, China, Asia, Russia, EU and the UK. And then you have the good old USA. So what's happening here? Well, buckle up, you're not going to like this next few lines. This week, the clans will become prevalent throughout this next portion. forced the new Treasury Secretary to sign a new Federal Reserve Agreement. At this point, it's not valid until a vote of Congress comes into play. Now, the clowns believe they still control over 60% of the Congress, and so they think that Congress will not be an issue. Only one problem for them is that they must show assets first. And the problem is they don't have any. Nothing. Zip. Nada. So they can push through Federal Reserve agreements all they like, but you have to show a level of assets to cover it, and they can't. So they sent people around to try and convince the holders of the trust account to transfer funds which belong to the people over to the new Treasury. Then wait for it. Then the Treasury would transfer it all out to the new Federal Reserve, and then the Rothschilds would lend it back to the United States. I'll repeat that again. It was a beggar's belief listening to it the first time. The clowns want the trust people to transfer funds which belongs to the people over to the new Treasury. Then the Treasury would transfer it all out to the new Federal Reserve, which they're trying to railroad through, and then the Rothschilds, who control Federal Reserve, would then lend it back to the United States. I know it's not funny, but the audacity of it beggars belief. But the reality is if you think that's something new, think again. Because this is what's been going on for the last 104 years. American people's income taxes, which is not a tax, but a voluntary tribute to the Crown of England, aka City of London, which, like District of Columbia, is a separate state compared to the rest of the country that pays no tax and operates under different rules compared to the rest of the country. The IRS, which is a Puerto Rican trust and not an American company, is the collection service for the Federal Reserve, which is not an American bank but a subsidiary of the City of London, who operate for and on behalf of the Vatican and the IMF. And we think we got independence? Really? Now, they collect the income tax, and 67% goes to the Crown. Like I said, it's not a tax, it's a tribute. 23% goes to shareholders, who are mainly the same people, operating from London, and 10% is operating costs. 0 goes to the American government. None. Now, what happens next is the American government then has on it imposed budgets that will always lead to an overspend. It's deliberate. Then the American government has to go cap in hand to the Federal Reserve and borrows money from the Federal Reserve at 6%. 6% of our own money. Not the government's money, the people's money. And so in essence, we the people are borrowing our own money, and they make us pay it back at 6%. This is insanity. And the clowns in the Pentagon, Langley, and to a lesser degree the FBI, either failed to grasp or blatantly ignore this fact. Ignorance at this stage of the game is a choice. Those three organisations have failed your duty to the people of this country, clearly. So, apparently the new Treasury Secretary has said that this doesn't make any sense. No shit, Sherlock. Well, the new Treasury Secretary I would suggest it's time you get to work to fix it, along with the clowns. Unbelievable. Next item. Where are we on this? A message to the dinar people of Congress, Pentagon and Langley. You people are living in a complete fantasy land if you think you're going to get paid quadrillions of dollars on your dinars. We know you were promised 10 to 1 for your dinars, and that the responsibility of that is for the Rothschilds to pay, not the American government and subsequently its people. So quit holding us to ransom. Your greed has overlooked basic economic sense. No law passed, either in Iraq, America or La La Land, will allow for quadrillions of dollars or any other currency to enter the market. It's all about supply and demand. If you don't know that now, you need to get people in there who can tell you basics. The GDP of planet Earth, so it's everything spent by everyone right around the world, is around $90 trillion a year. Even adding 1 quadrillion, which is 11 times the current global GDP, there is no trade possible, even if you included every drop of oil in existence to support 1 quadrillion. It has to have assets to support it. Now, the people at the Pentagon asked to trust people for 160 quadrillion. You just can't make this up. Or the clowns at Wells Fargo, who tried and still think that they will become the new Federal Reserve. Yeah, right. They asked for 60 quadrillion. Utter idiots. You know, you don't need to be a Jim Willie or a Sirius Dogstar to grasp that. Perhaps you need to contact those two people who might teach you sense. How can you add, even at asking for 1 quadrillion, 11 times the current global GDP in one swoop? It would crash every single economy right round the world in one day. But no, just give us 160 quad and we'll fix things. Pentagon, Langley, I've never fixed anything. Except backdoor deals for elites. It was they, the Rothschilds, let's not forget, and the Chinese elders that made you the promise on your dinars, 10-1. Nice little earning for yourself. Is that not insider trading? As I say, you seem to play by different rules to everybody else. So it's ultimately the Rothschilds and the Chinese elder Asian faction group that needs to deliver your funds for your dinars, not the American government. As you know, I said earlier, there's one major problem. They can't, never could, and never will. How many years have you all been waiting for your non-existent payout? All of you have been duped on a massive scale, and only your own greed, stupidity prevents you from seeing the reality of it. The dangled carrot awaiting you as was always just around the corner. Oh, it's tomorrow, next Tuesday 9 AM, if not Wednesday 9 AM. Newsflash for all you dinar people. The carrot never existed to begin with. It was an illusion. Get over it and suck it up and move on. And meanwhile, could you please remember, all of you, Pentagon, Langley, FBI, you have a duty to protect this country, do you not? You clowns in the upper management, to the rest of the world you resemble like a giant circus, a laughing stock. Well, they may be laughing, but we the people are not. Message to the Iraqi people and the government. We want to make it quite clear we are in no way offending nor discounting the hell the country of Iraq has been through, and we do hope your country can once again flourish. We are only referring to the fake currency the Rothschilds printed up, and we want to make that very clear. Next item. Said it was deep, didn't I? Message to all the people who have been promised a government position, or promised to be next head of state, or secretary of the UN, or any other position in exchange for political favours given by you for free via the Rothschilds. The political clout of the Rothschilds across the world is waning. Every other country can see it, bar you clowns here. Now, the Rothschilds have been working on the Iraqi dinar program, along with their Bush counterparts, for the last 20 years. They've been trying to overthrow Ukraine for the last 6. Failed and failed. They've tried to assassinate or impeach Mr. Putin. Now trying it with Mr. Trump, and also attempting to take out President Xi in China. Now, obviously, all are still president and will continue to be. So, given the number of failures by the Rothschilds and their entourage, it's safe to say they will not fulfill their promises to any of you either. It's time you woke up and smelt the coffee. So we're appealing to think before you give your resources, which is not your resources, I'll reword that. Just think before you give our resources away to the Rothschilds for free, for leverage, as doing so would be considered by we the people as an act of treason against our country and every other country. Think about it. If the Rothschilds had so much clout, why is it they are threatening everyone with sovereignty to sign off on their bullshittery? Why? Because they're broke, because they've got no clout whatsoever, and the only one giving them credence is you. Next news item. There's been a lot of media coverage recently about Russia, blaming them for everything. This is another of the Rothschilds and the entourage plans to invade Russia. Not them. Oh no. Get America to do it. And the reason being is Russia is one of the most resource-rich nations on the planet. When you combine it with the former USSR states, it's quite possibly the most resource-rich. Thankfully for them, is they also have one of the most technologically advanced militaries on the planet. You fooled them once 100 years ago, maybe twice during the Cold War, but rest assured they will not be fooled again. Nope. So what the Rothschilds is doing now is trying to use America and the mainstream media as a tool to overthrow Russia, to steal their resources. Can you people not see the pattern? So why would they overthrow Russia? Why are they trying to overthrow Australia and New Zealand and take all their resources? The UK. They've already failed in Asia. Because they're broke. Get the message now? Hello, McFly. I think if they use America like a tool, the Rothschilds that is, and control all their resources and have money to push America further into debt to them. Except there's one big problem with this plan. No country will win a military war with Russia on its soil. None. You think our military is advanced here? That tech way before us. They've got some very special people up there. Not people, beings. Play with fire, you'll get burnt badly. And no amount of your Pentagon AI war games will make you win. Like North Korea. That's why you've never invaded there. And also, why would any nation spend its own resources to attack a nation to collect resources for the Rothschilds? Again, this is the height of stupidity. Which would then subsequently deplete the USA military budget and wipe out many of our people and its infrastructure. Just to collect resources for the Rothschilds. Really? A benefit of, quite frankly, a megalomaniacal, Khazarian, hook-nosed family with the reptilian dragon family counterparts. Word to the Rothschilds. Well, if you want to go and kick Russia's ass, then you're going to have to do it yourself. Because we're not doing it for you. Seems your mercenary groups won't play ball with you anymore. Wonder why that is, Mr. Rothschild. But you never paid them either, did you? 3 years is it now? You haven't paid the mercenaries? Told them the same lies as the clowns in the Pentagon. Here, have some bogus printed out dinars and wait for the 10-1 payout via the RV. Yeah, right. Not all of us ride the short bus, Mr. Rothschild. Point being is Russia does not want to rule the world, and nobody is interested in another Bolshevik revolution. However, we all know you do, Rothschild, and Russia will not help you. They're still kind of pissed that you stole all kinds of shit off them many years ago. Rest assured, Russia or its people are not an enemy of America. The Rothschilds are, regardless of what land they sleep in at night. So the question remains, are you going to grow a set to defend your family and friends, colleagues and countrymen, or just remain slaves to the paymasters, who, oddly enough, don't pay you either? We're going to have a small break, and then we'll be back with more of the intel. Hi all and welcome back. Right. This next piece is something I was asked to do. Something I've been inclined to do for a long time. And given all the fun and games that's just reported in the last 45 minutes or so, this is a message direct to the generals, the Pentagon, Langley, FBI and other government officials. This country and its history has been a lie from day one, starting with a fair proportion of the founding fathers and their special interest groups. The bogus signing of the Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July 1776. Same year, the House of Bavaria group came into the light with Adam Weishaupt. Coincidence? No. Within 2 weeks of the 4th of July 1776, Britain sent its renewed tax tariff for America. That confirms we never got independence at all. Why would we be paying tax tariffs to Britain if we were independent? Documents proving that are in the archives. Go and find them. Civil Wars, 1812, more bogus bullshittery and staged events. 1871 brought an end to the organic constitution and further eroding any of our heritage we had, or thought we did. 1913. The money people decided to hijack our whole economic system with the support of Quislings and the Congress and other more insidious rogue elements, some of which aren't even human. 1917. These people threw us into a world war, which was all about destroying Russia and stealing their resources, not to mention eliminating millions of people so they can fulfill their other agenda of rewriting history. A common theme over the last 1,000 years, I might add. 1930, led by the Federal Reserve. They marched us into a great recession for the people, whilst they continued to live their lives of luxury. No sooner had that died down, when we were then led into another war, part funded by General Electric and the Quisling Prescott Bush, whose real name is Scherf, who, after being found guilty, was subsequently banned from being involved in politics ever again in this country. And yet we still ended up with the absolute evil that is George Herbert Walker Bush and his idiot cokehead offspring GW, not to mention the cocaine trafficker Jeb Bush, whose security firm was also in charge of the Twin Towers on 9/11. All overlooked. IBM, Siemens, Ford Motor Company, Rockefeller Foundation, Hugo Boss, Bayer and BMW were all involved with funding the Nazis. All of them. This time to collect more wealth in Asia and kill 50 million people in the process. Whilst that war was going on, the same countries who were allegedly fighting each other were making trade agreements, doing banking restructures and setting up bogus organisations like the UN. Since the end of World War II, this country has invaded 81 countries at the behest of these hidden vampiric parasites, be it human or not, at great cost to the people of America in terms of finances. And yes, in case you have forgotten, it's the people who pay for all your shit. Remember that. The standing of the country and its people in the eyes of the rest of the world has plummeted. We're seen as pariahs. Our sons and daughters lost or maimed in battle. Yes, the same ones you neglect after their usage to you is spent. The ones left with adverse reactions to the drugs you administered, untreated injuries, no health support, no financial support, and those you step over in the streets, called the homeless, the veterans, just discarded. Not to mention the deaths of millions of people and the devastation done to their countries that has returned most of them almost back to the Stone Age. All of you sitting there in your ivory towers pushing pens and computers with your phony badges of honour. Message to all of you with those badges: it is not and never was honourable to kill people. Least of all bomb countries with no defence and 30,000 feet. That is a cowardly massacre. And to what end? American freedoms? My arse it is. Now, it's to appease certain gods, in inverted commas, hideous non-human entities and their agendas, bloodline families, covens, corporate egregores, occult groups, religious constructs, and psychopathic humans whose lust for fame, fortune, wealth and power appears to have no limitation of depravity. That is who you are and what you stand for currently. That is your legacy to date. All of the above you should be aware of by now. You're now under no illusions that most of your ET connections are now severed. Most of the rest of the control system is also severed. So no excuses now that you are being threatened or coerced by this group or that group. You are on your own with a few psychopathic humans, soul stealers, hybrids and the synthetics. And yet you still sit there and play the frightened little boy being bullied in the playground. Utterly pathetic. All of you now know that you've been lied to every day of your lives, just like the rest of us, slaves as we are called. Except you found out recently that you were also classed as slaves for the cabal. Funny that, isn't it? So you're not as important as you all thought you were. Oh, the irony. So the question remains, are you going to continue to live the lie of being important, or do the most important thing ever on this planet, and not only save the American people, but support the rest of the world in ridding this planet of all the evil perpetrators once and for all? You have a golden chance of correcting all the ills. It's time you all took that opportunity up, don't you think? Here's some solutions. Remove all rogue elements from American soil first. All of them. Swamp cleaned. This can be achieved by a staged withdrawal of all troops in all war zones currently ongoing. None of them are there for American freedoms. Bring them home. And a staged removal of all troops and all bases off foreign soil permanently. Once rogue elements are removed, the three branches of military can start a clean-up of the damaged areas created by your insanity. In our name, I might add. Land clean-up can be done by the Army. Sea clean-up can be done by the Navy. And the air clean-up can be done by the Air Force and the Space Command Group. Yes, we know they exist. A cease and desist of all genetic, psychotronic, biowarfare, mind control, cloning, hybridization, abductions, chemtrails, transhumanist agendas, and all other exotic forms of weaponry harmful to us and the planet. Set up a full-on multidisciplined assessment team, including some members of the public, to analyse all technology available as to whether it's beneficial to humanity or not, and if it's not, it should be destroyed. Set up a full-on multidisciplined assessment team, including some members of the public, to analyse all underground bases for full disclosure on their intent and purposes, and whether from a financial or an ethical point of view these are cost effective for the public or the planet's benefit, and must be dealt with accordingly. A multidisciplinary team to liaise with all other countries threatened by these rogue elements, provide support and logistics for them to complete their process quickly. A steady release of the new technology that has been denied to the people, providing that technology is deemed of benefit by the assessment teams. Ensure swift release of the funds so we can get the many different projects designed to improve this country, its people, and rebuild its infrastructure. A full cease and desist of funneling taxpayers' money into black budget accounts. Find all the accounts and return the money back to the American government and subsequently the people via tax breaks or direct refunds. A cease and desist to all drug and other trafficking implemented by Langley and others. Locate the accounts, confiscate it and return it to the American government to go towards healthcare. A full withdrawal of any connection to the United Nations, NATO or any other organisations who are sieving money out of this country at the behest of the cabal. Shut down Department of Homeland Security and National Security Agency, as they are both Nazi creations to spy on us, and funny enough, you as well. You're now aware of that, I'm sure you are. Shut down the Federal Reserve and its IRS counterpart, as they are foreign impostors on our soil. Restore the organic constitution and make necessary amendments for this time. Restore the American government, not USA Inc. We don't want or need any form of labelled government, be it republic, democracy or any other ism ideology. We want a government that solely operates on the premise of acting at all times for and on behalf of we the people. Nothing more and nothing less. The people are owed that much at least. I came to this country 15 years ago from England. The country that has done so much harm to this one. Not the people, but the same ruling elites. I've spent most of my spare time, for over a decade now, trying to educate and help the American public free themselves from the tyranny of the UK and others' control, even though it isn't my duty to do so. But you have a duty to aid and support the American people. To date, you have failed to do so spectacularly. It is to your shame that as an American born and bred here, that you need a Brit to guide or cajole you onto a better path for your own people and its country. The irony of which is not lost on me or many others. You all have an opportunity and an obligation now to correct the wrongs you have taken part in. A chance to do the right thing by your family, friends, colleagues, country and humanity. a chance to set a brighter future for us all, free of tyranny and control systems, free of war, poverty, starvation, poisoning. These are the real badges of honour. Helping people, not using or killing them. So the final question remains, are you going to be the Rothschild slaves or the people's heroes? Your choice. Please make the right one. Hi all, and welcome back to the final hour tonight. I hope that hit home. It should do. Not necessarily to the listeners, the people listeners I might add, the clowns, because your behaviour is clownish. You're stopping humanity progressing. We have an obligation to future generations to correct the damage of the last 1,000 years. Maybe even longer, lots longer. But most people are familiar with the history of the last 1,000 years. So there's a lot of bad things going on. It's not unexpected that they were going to fight back. They're desperate to keep hold of the last remnants of their control system. And it is the last remnants. Are these people with a fistful of dinars going to continue to hijack the world for their own greed? Or are they going to be heroes? An opportunity to be heroes, like Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump wasn't there to win the election, he was there to support Hitler. We all know that now. But he has an opportunity to become a hero, and so do you. You have an obligation to this country, something you've failed to do. Make the right choice. Right, we're going to go into some questions. I didn't think we'd get any. I'll see how far I can go. It's been a long day. I've been at it since 11 o'clock this morning, just for this show. But it was worth it, because things needed to be said, things needed to be clarified, and things needed to be revealed. And they have done. And so now we wait to see if consciences are pricked. We'll see. Do we have any updates on when chemtrails will stop and our water and food will be clean? Nope. Not until stuff mentioned in the last 2 hours is cleaned up. Does the Earth have an avatar body that mingles with amongst humans? Not too sure what you mean by avatar body. If you mean is there a planetary being? Yes. As for the second part, no comment. Is being a demon part of spiritual growth? Well, as I understand it, the demons were created at the same time as the angels. It's all about balance. Except there became an imbalance. Some of the angels fell. Some of the demons are helping. Funny enough. Including an incarnate who's in our own group. Don't ask me for the name. Is the storm we're getting real or produced for diversion from something else like the March meeting concerning the bank bailouts? It's possible. I haven't had a chance to be updated on that. I don't know. I haven't even had a chance to read how bad it got, or maybe it was weakened. Will 5G towers be erected and used to control us with radio frequencies? Well, that depends on who's in charge. We have Wi-Fi available that has healing qualities. Once the rogue elements are removed, that can be released. Can we get arrest numbers by state and category along with the grand total so far? No. Not being released, or names. Over the last year I've seen 3 movies that all have the same plot. Archangel Michael, good, versus Archangel Gabriel, bad. What is meaning or symbolism behind this plot, and who are those figures in actuality? Archangel is a more definitive term. Archangel, and that kind of tells you where they're at. What's going on with the weather in South Africa? I'm not too sure. A cyclone that failed to behave as a natural cyclone. Instead it moved across the width of Africa, 4 countries, before running out of steam. Is there an agenda behind this engineering, or is Gaia doing a thing? I would suggest it's more fun and games. There's a lot going on in Africa at the moment. A lot of cleaning up to do. Is history repeating itself as in the days of Noah? No. Where are we next? I'm getting messages left, right and centre. Right, okay. Well, I've lost my space now. Is the 5th element, where is the 5th element you mentioned supposed to manifest? Example, in humans, the earth, or both, and what is supposed to happen after, when and if that spirit or God particle does actually get activated? I think you've misunderstood that particular portion of the show. The 5th element is gravity, ether, or aether. That's what holds the force. That's what gives you the gravity. In essence, then, it becomes the God particle. Now, if you are able to control that force, that can create portals. And that's what CERN was up to. So it's not supposed to manifest, it is. Otherwise, you'd be floating off into space. When will the pedo clear up start in British Parliament? It's gone quiet. That's ongoing, and it's largely been done behind closed doors, away from the public. The media won't touch it because it's all there people remember. 40 to 50% of public figures will be implicated in that when it all breaks loose. Will there eventually be disclosure on information relating to travel? For instance, say if many years from now we trade and work with our star relatives, or will this be redundant due to the body being the vessel for the soul, eliminating the need for travel physically? Instead, will information relating to this be disclosed, maybe through education institutions or something else entirely? So about 4 questions in one. I'll break it down. Trade, is already ongoing. It's been ongoing here for thousands of years. Sadly, most humans are part of the trade. Swiss Indo is one particular group that are involved in off-world trafficking, where they get sent to Mars in slave factories if they're lucky. If they're not, they're, I might as well say, they're put in processing plants onto meat hooks, left to drain, and their body parts are used. We have to be very, very careful about trade extraterrestrials in the future. We really need to find out the full truth of what's going on first, and there's plans afoot for that type of a disclosure to come out. We'll see. Will travel be redundant due to the body being a vessel? Well, certain people can already travel the stars. Depends how, whether you are able to detach your astral cord. Not many can do it. Don't ask me how you do it, but yeah, it's just the way it is. That's how you can go and visit other planets and star systems. Eliminating the need to travel. Well, there's two versions of travel. There is the kind of linear version, which we do have the technology to do. A particular unpleasant agency group have one of those craft, 1 light year speed. Now that only gets you so far, given we're kind of in the backwater here. Once we not necessarily learn, because the material has been available for a long time, about how to do zero transition craft, where you basically bend space and time, and so point A to point B is just across the road, not 40 light years away or 1,000 light years away. So there's that technology that is available. We haven't perfected it yet. I'll be covering more of that, the aspect of that, and how it's done, and what needs to be done for us able to do that in Humanity Unplugged Part 2, which will be coming either this Sunday, Tuesday, or the following Sunday, depending on how far I get with the script. Is Trump captured by one or more of the factions, as stated by Paul Craig Roberts? Trump's actions in many areas seem to suggest that. What is your perspective on what the status of Trump is regarding helping the good guys? Some of his appointments have been to appease certain factions. Some of his appointments won't last. Mr. Trump's under enormous pressure from many, many groups, and he's not in a very good position. He's got many guns with bullets with his name on, pointing from many directions. He's shown a lot of courage, I have to say, whether you like the man or not. You imagine being in his shoes for 1 hour, and you've got clowns pointing guns at you, threatening they're going to do this, this and this, and then another group comes in and they threaten you, you better do this, and then another group comes in. Not an enviable position to be in. So no, he's not captured by one or more of the factions. He's not clear of the bad guys, because there's still work ongoing, but largely he's doing rather well. Has the idea of dropping the income tax been discarded, or still possibility to be considered? Well, if the Pentagon and people in the agencies take up the message that was delivered half an hour ago, then there's your answer. It's up to them. They either want to rescue this country and its people and ultimately save the world from rogue entities, or they want to continue with their path of greed, bogus badges of honour, bogus titles. Their choice. For over a decade, how many questions are in this one? For over a decade, the neocon faction of the Zionists kept beating the war drums of the Israel nuke option. So my question is this: if we really need to drain the swamp to rid ourselves of the neocons and the central bank of vampires that keep the wars or cold wars going, to keep their military, congressional, industrial complex propped up, then why not do what Shakespeare said and kill all the lawyers, which was recognised by the original 13th Amendment? Give them notice to back off, or this will be fully disclosed, and in comes the street sweeper. It's a possibility. If America and its sovereignty is rushed through, which is why that bill we did on January the 3rd was so important, then bar lawyers are ended. Because bar, the B in bar is British. Sovereignty means no more British, which means no more bar. So we come under American law. So those people that have raped us, lawyers, I'm sure there's some nice lawyers somewhere. Most of them are rapists of finance, liars, deceivers, but they get people off who've committed crimes because they've got money, and people who haven't committed crimes end up in jail because they haven't. They're a particularly nasty group. So hopefully that is what will take place with the sovereignty. Where are we next? Any more questions or not? I know this is not in the alternative media world, but along with Pedogate, these two disclosures must send most of these globalists scurrying for the hills. These two truths, along with the fulcrum, should stop even the Rothschilds. I know there must be a reason this remains on the shelf. Why? It's not on the shelf. It's being actively used. Are ET genes being introduced through vaccines and medicines? Transhumanism. We wouldn't be able to connect to nature's energy nor the spiritual frequency. Some of the nanotech and some of the chips are being administered through the vaccines. Those will be stopped. Apparently there's tech that will be made available to clear them out. Do you know, how do you know when you've reached the mental planes? you develop abilities that are considered not possible. Best I can tell you on that. Where are we next? I've been told the plan is still in play and that we're going to see arrests very soon. Have you heard anything on this at all? I knew for a while we are in this slow burn approach, and it has absolutely helped no one. The cabal just needs to be taken out now. It's either that or watch more of us die off, or a lot of us die soon. The plan is still in play. Yes, it appears slow, but only because you don't understand the real depth of what's taken place here. You just don't. I'm sorry. It's not necessarily at the question or the person who asked that question. It's in general. If you think it's going too slow, you don't understand how deep this problem runs. You just don't. You're talking thousands of years of control, multiple factions with multiple resources, with technology beyond most people's comprehension, interfering at all levels, and you think a few people around the world can just do it all overnight. Please think again. What has been accomplished to date is nothing short of extraordinary. 10, 20 years. We've almost brought the control system to a grinding halt financially, pretty much have. A lot of the ET's involvement and the tech pretty much gone. 10 years out of 16,500 minimum, and you think it's going too soon, too slow. Please think again. You're doing a disservice to the people who put their necks on the line day after day, night after night. This is a long process, whether people like that idea or not. Eventually, you've heard quite enough from this show of how deep it goes. And you think that can all be wiped out in a couple of weeks, or even a couple of years. Deluding yourself. Too much, 2 weeks, or 2 months, or it'll all be done by 2012, or whatever. No. If it takes 100 years, we've done extraordinarily well when comparing it to just the Draco time of 16,500 years. All of it's come crashing down in 10 years. So, if you think the answer is to just wipe out the cabal with violence, then you've just basically wiped out 80% of the people on this planet with them. That's what happens, or would happen, if we went full on war with the cabal. 80% on both sides would be wiped out. Is that what you want? With no infrastructure, no food, no money? Please think. Would you have an opinion on the idea the old world order is trying to let each party in the US take each other out, so that a world organisation could step in and take over, not just in this country but others as well? There is no each party. There never was. It's just an illusion. You know, I know it's fairly heavy here, and it's fairly rigid. I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican. The reality is you're neither. Those organisations represent the cabal. Period. Always have done. but not always will do. One of the things I would like to suggest going forward, whether it be with Trump or anybody else, is we eliminate party politics altogether. It's just a game, selecting one over the other. If you think you're a Democrat, you're not understanding what's been going on here. If you think you're a Republican, same thing. It's all part of their game, their labels and their rules. My suggestion would be no parties. We just have everyday people who are the best for the job to operate in the government for and on behalf of the people. And if they don't cut the mustard, out. No briberies, backdoor deals. No. No more party politics. It's what's ruined this country. You've seen what the clowns are doing now, all over the country, campaigning against Trump, campaigning for Trump. One party is better than the other. Nah. Is the recent activity in the Netherlands due to the presence of the Rothschilds being there? Partially, mainly the Nazis. Yet again, readying to try and cause war with Russia. Is there something extraordinary going on with the energy? Are we being hit, targeted? It's 4 a.m, been awake for a while, my entire body is restless and feels like a pinball machine with lights and sounds. And I cannot figure out if the sound is in my ears or my brain. I think we've all gone through some of that. Yes, sleep patterns are disrupted. As you all become aware of certain aspects of the hidden nature of dream time and how to counteract certain astral predators, more of you are going to be awake because you've dealt with it. More and more of you are part of the clean-up act. So if you are waking up every 2 hours, it's a sign your soul spirit is active in that field. 2 hours is kind of the maximum. If the spirit or soul is out for longer than that, it comes in grave danger of not being able to get back into the vessel. Something that I experienced 3 weeks ago. I was struggling to get back in, which means I would have died in my sleep. Entire body is restless. Yes, that's the energies. Pinball machine, lights and sounds. Yes, there's funny sounds going on, and yes, people are experiencing it, not just in their ears, or they can't make out where it's coming from, their ears or the head. That's all part of it. And the best plan would be to meditate. You said there's been ongoing research into the true human population, and it's likely the cabal are overestimating the numbers. Well, that was clear. We laid out a few weeks ago. All the millions that have died, starvation. 27,000 children per day die of malnutrition. But the population has doubled. Really. Yet when asked how many cabal members there are, you suggested the Georgia Guidestones might be a hint. 500 million, including the their minions. But with your suggestion that true humans account for only 10 to 15% of the Earth's population, how does the Guidestone's reference to a population of 500 million necessarily indicate an intention to depopulate? Because some of those 500 million are not human. This is where people go wrong. I said human living souls. You'll find out how many are not at a later date. The stones were put there by a Freemason group. Let me just see if there's any. It appears that Trump is walking back on some of his promises. Are his corporate controllers starting to rein him in? No, he's just trying to keep things ticking along. There's a lot of back scratching going on. Some of it is beneficial, no. But the other alternative is full on war, which is something none of us need or want. So this kind of to and froing will go on until the swamp is clean, which is expected to be within the next few months. Is Pence really a pedophile? I'm not too sure. I haven't checked up on that. Seems to be people suggesting that, but I can't confirm one way or the other. You mentioned learning from the cabal after the changes about using information or techniques that are being held from us. What information or technologies are you thinking of? Seems we have access to collective knowledge that they don't, and I don't want to be connected to their archon source of influence. It seems that they are being more consistent. This is not in reference to this particular question, but can I please ask members to just ask questions, because it then helps me to get through more questions and I can answer more, rather than give an opinion. Just the questions, please. Don't we have access to what we truly need more than anything that they have to offer? Can you clarify? No, we don't have access to all the technologies. We don't have access to all the knowledge. A lot of it is kept in secret archives, and they have the codes and access to it. So it would be helpful if some of them, not all of them, I clarified this quite clearly last week, if some of them were ascertained to deliver the knowledge to certain groups around the world to then disseminate to the people. Some of the techniques and some of the magic that's been involved really needs to be taught to some of the people so we can avoid it again in the future. That information would be lost by just eliminating them. And that is why I said it may be of value for them to deliver the knowledge and some of the skullduggery that's been going on around this planet via black magic and the other hidden sciences. Got to bear in mind, these people, most of these people will be dead within 30 years. If the changes are made now, we'll be well on our way to a much better society. We'll have learnt the knowledge. The outside of the people, the knowledge is the most valuable thing on this planet. Not pieces of paper or lumps of metal. Knowledge. Without knowledge, Doesn't matter how much pieces of paper you've got, you're not going anywhere. What if you give Stone Age people $1 million? What are they going to do with it? Not going to go very far, are they? Because they've got no knowledge of what they're going to do, of what value or what purpose is that going to help them. So that's why I feel the last thing I want to see is researchers all over the world spending the rest of their lifetime searching for the knowledge when it's already there and just needs to be handed over. You know, they're not going to hand it over willingly without some form of offer. As unpalatable as that may be, it may be the best thing. Like I said, most of these people will be dead in 30 years anyway. For the person who asked about the election in Holland, I haven't had a chance to look at it today. Apologies for that. Is it rigged? Probably. I don't know who won it, so I apologise for that, but I can't follow everything. Are they going to reinstate the Glass-Steagall? Not too sure. Is the Queen on her way out? I had to get a confirm on that, as RT code to release London Bridge is falling or something like that, which is a sign that the Queen is on her way out. But I've received confirmation that that is errant as of this morning. Where are we next? Is there any more happening with the MSM being labelled enemies of the state for their lies and propaganda? Yes, that's ongoing. Why are monopolies like YouTube and Google getting away with demonetising many truther channels? Not all of them are truther channels. May find that out at a later date. It is being said that Obama is helping run a shadow government against Trump. Yes. Article in RT came out, Wars of Religion will start in Europe. Reminds me of the Albert Pike plan. Yep. It won't work. The overall plan, in essence, it's already started. This is what Syria and parts of Turkey, Lebanon, it's all the same thing. The clash of the civilizations, Muslims versus Christians, which was all laid out as a plan. Prophecy, it said. Prophecy means plan in their books. In 1888. 129 years ago. Is it true there are Chinese troops here in America ready to take over? No. There may be some here. Whether they're here to take over, it may be the case. I know Drake said there's another way, the insurrectional thing, I can't remember something of that name, but under current laws of the USA Inc. and under the Constitution, which is not the organic one, American troops are not allowed to be active on our own soil. This is a legal issue. So if we get go ahead to start removing the elements, we may have to use foreign troops until the rules are changed. Where are we next? I think that's just about enough. Last one. should a person ask if I knew the world shaman. I said they'd never heard of a world shaman. Do you know if one exists? Yes, it's a group, and they call themselves Level 7 Shamans, and they're dotted around the US. So you can pass that on to Mr. Whittler. And surprised Dr. Nadu doesn't know that. So, not everyone knows everything, least of all me. So yeah, that's enough for me for one day or 1 week. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. There was a lot in there, and yes, again, there was a lot to take in, but there's also a lot of hope, despite some of the news items that may give off fear. But most of their other plans have failed. Seems to me like they're all failing. And one day, some of the clowns with the honour badges will realise that they're just slaves of the Rothschilds. At that point, we will get the breakthrough we've all been waiting for. The people's own doomsday clock for the cabal ticks ever closer to midday. Don't you mean midnight, Thomas? No, that is their version. Midnight is dark time. Ours at midday brings it into the light. And on that note, I'm going to wish you all a good night. My name's Thomas Williams. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. Bye for now.